Right. Okay. So I hope that you have been joining with the program, right? Because that this is the third session that we are going to conduct under this series of data science awareness sessions. So in today's session, actually, it's a really important session and it's a really special session, right? So we discussed about the machine learning and deep learning, data visualization, but have you known, guys, that data science is not like that other subject areas, let's say medicine, engineering, let's say banking, physics, chemistry. So the thing is, guys, data science is kind of a very universal subject which can be applied for different subject areas, right? So today in this session, actually, we are going to discuss about the tech talk session will be delivered for giving a kind of a really good understanding about the application of data science and AI, these ML areas in the economics and business, which is a very, very important thing that you should know in the current world. Okay, so as I have mentioned, the data science plays a very crucial role in economics and business by leveraging vast amounts of data to uncover the patterns, trends, and correlations. As I have mentioned, guys, it enables the businesses to make informed decisions, optimize the operations, and develop the effective strategies. By utilizing the predictive modeling, machine learning, and data visualization, and data science empowers the organizations to enhance the customer segmentation, price strategies, risk management, and supply chain optimization. Anyway, so as I have mentioned, guys, this is a very important area. As I have mentioned. So today's session will be actually delivered by one of my very kind of I can tell him a brother, actually, right? He's a senior for me, actually. He's from my senior batch, and it's a very inspirational character for me as well, right? Since my undergraduate level as well. So I'll introduce today's speaker, Mr. Sanjay Aryavansan. So actually, as I have given in the flyer, which was shared already, he's a graduate from University of Colombo, who has specialized in mathematics, and actually then after that he has decided to change his subject area to the economics, and he's a graduate from University of Oxford as well currently. So he has completed the masters in economics. And I should mention that before joining as a lecturer at SLIIT, actually, I was working with him at the same university, the University of Morato, actually, for some time. And I learned a lot as a lecturer as well from him. And as I have mentioned, he's a really inspirational character for me. Okay, so without wasting time, let's hand over the session to Sanjay. Okay, yeah.
Thank you, Samadhi, for that kind introduction. Samadhi, can you hear me and can the screen be seen?
Yes. We can hear you. Yeah. Screen is up.
Okay. Right. Hello, everyone. So, my name is Sanjay, as Samadhi said. So, before we start this off, I have to say a small disclaimer. As I mentioned in the presentation as well, the views, whatever I express here, are my own, and it doesn't represent any opinions or views of my employer, because I have to say that because I'm currently working at the Ceylon Chamber of Commerce. So before I start off, just to give a quick introduction, other than for the qualification that Samadhi mentioned, as he said, I was working at University of Monaco as a lecturer, and then I went for my studies in the UK. And after I finished my master's there, I worked as a researcher at the University of Oxford as well. And then I worked at a consultancy firm for a few months before returning to Sri Lanka. And then I worked at the parliament for one of the parliamentary committees called Committee on Public Finance. And now, after that, I'm working at the Ceylon Chamber of Commerce. So I'm also still a student of economics. I'm also learning. So today's topic is from big data to smart data, harnessing the power of data science in economic decision making. I'm pretty sure y'all are now students of data science, and once you all graduate, you all would be looking out for different areas, what kind of fields that you all can go into. So economics is one such area that you all will have a lot of potential in, because currently what I saw, at least in the UK, or in the world, there's a lot of economists are using the data science tools, the models that you find in data science, machine learning, or even deep learning models, to gain further insight into economic trends or economic patterns and drive policy making. Now, that is something which we lack a little bit in Sri Lanka, but there's a lot of potential for that as well. So let me start off with the presentation. So the presentation flow is, first I'll talk a little bit about what big data is and smart data. I'm pretty sure you all know about all this. So I'll quickly run through that and then talk about data science and its role in transforming big data to smart data. Then I'll get into the topic of data science and economics and some career opportunities that you all can think of, and then conclude it from there. You all can ask me any questions in between as well. Plus, or if not, if you want to, you can ask at the end of the presentation as well. Just stop me and ask a question if you have any doubts or clarifications. So the first question is, what is big data? And as I mentioned here, it's just, I'm pretty sure you all know about this, but it's just extremely large data sets that can potentially be analyzed. And what does it do after certain analysis? It reveals patterns, trends, and associations. Now, why is this important? Well, after analysis is what we get something called smart data, which is derived from big data, which is gained through the process of analysis and interpretation. And this is what we use for decision making. And what's important is, while big data is often raw and unstructured, smart data is processed. And this is a powerful tool to make informed economic decisions. Now, just keep that in mind. So moving on, what is data science? It's a multidisciplinary field. Now, why is it important for us economists? Well, it's a very powerful tool, as I said before, for understanding and predicting economic trends. It gives a kind of a guidance for us as economists to tell us that these things, certain things, may or may not occur. And then it helps us to talk to policymakers and drive evidence-based policy decisions. So what is the flow of this? Well, first there is a process of data collection, but before that you need to understand, as economists, we need to understand what data we need and where we go to, what sources we obtain it from. So we collect the data, then there's a process of data cleaning, where you remove errors and inconsistencies, and then you analyze the data using various methods, statistical methods, using various models, and finally you visualize the data. What is the objective of all of this? As I said before, this is to help policymakers make informed decisions. Now, moving on, I'm just running through this because these things you already know. So some of the major data science tools that we use would be Python, R, SQL. And to visualize data, you can use Tableau or Power BI, which I'm pretty sure you guys must be learning or will learn in future as well. And now economists are also starting to use machine learning models, and some economists go into deep learning models as well. But one thing I had to mention before I move on is that it is important as an economist, if you are coming into the field of economics, you have to keep in mind that you're talking to policymakers who are people who may or may not have a scientific background or a data analytics background. So if your model is too complex and if you're trying to drive certain policy decisions, it should not be something too complex. So I'll get into that in the next few slides, but I thought I should mention that so that you should keep that a little bit in your mind. So just drew up a small timeline here to show the data-driven decision making in economics. Well, in the 1970s is where you started the development of econometrics and the use of statistical methods to analyze economic data. Prior to that, economics was mainly very philosophical, and sometimes it was very mathematical because not much data was available, and with limited data, those were the main two options economists had. And then moving into the 1990s, you had the emergence of big data, where you had large data sets to analyze economic trends. Moving into the 2000s, there was a slow development of machine learning algorithms to automate data analysis. And then from the 2010 onwards and 2020s, economists started using more deep learning AI tools in economic decision making. So, data science in economic decision making. Now, this is just to give you a quick economic overview of what's happening in Sri Lanka. We have an external debt of $45 billion, and mind you, that's just our external debt. There's something called local debt as well. Our per capita GDP has gone down by 20% to $3,400. Our real GDP growth contracted by 7.8% for the year 2022. Our revenues have gone down. Total government revenue has gone down. Our total government expenditure has gone up. And our GDP as a whole has gone down as well, from a roughly $85 to $87 billion economy to about $77 billion in 2022. Now, that is just an economic overview of what was happening. Now you must be updated with what's happening on news. The talk of the town is domestic debt restructuring. Now, in one of the newspaper articles, it was said that some of the bondholders had mentioned, these are international bondholders of Sri Lankan bonds, said that when the government is restructuring our domestic or our external debt or domestic debt, they have to keep in mind two things, which are they have to ensure debt sustainability and financial stability. Now, what does that mean? Well, financial stability is simply the stability of our banking systems or financial institutions. Debt sustainability is Sri Lanka, as the government, needs to be able to service its debts, that is, pay interest on their debts without defaulting again. Now, how do you balance these two? Well, it's all down to a lot of numbers, a lot of data. So this is one such area where data analysts and economists can collaborate and really drive policy decisions and provide policymakers such as ministers or personnel from government institutes such as the Ministry of Finance to say, look here, we built this model and this is the data that we have. According to this data and this analysis, this is how we ensure that both debt is sustainable and the financial system, there is stability in the financial system. This is one area where data science can be used. But the tricky part is in developing countries like Sri Lanka is the lack of data or lack of access to data, because data is scattered. So it is a bit tricky, but it could be in, say, pieces of paper. Data could be on pieces of paper. So they might have to scan it and then take it into PDF format, extract the data from that, and then do your analysis. But it is very important. This is a very important area where economists and data scientists can collaborate. Another research that was done by a think tank in Sri Lanka called Verite Research, they looked at this domestic debt restructuring, they looked at the numbers, and they said, look, even with a principal cut is you cut down on your whatever you owe. So let's say you owe 100 rupees to someone and you say, look, I don't have the money, let me pay you only 50 rupees. So that's a 50% principal cut or haircut. And if they go ahead with 50% of a principal cut on your your external bonds and 25% haircut on your other multilateral, bilateral loans, still the debt to GDP of Sri Lanka will rise to 136%. Now, where do they get all these analysis from? They look at the numbers, they built certain models, but these are very elementary models that they built. They mainly what they've used is Microsoft Excel, and that's it. But you can go much further by looking at that data, and it's publicly available if you go to their website, Verite Research's website, and you can see what more of a story, what more of an insight can you gain using that data. So that is another area where I see that data scientists such as yourselves can actually look into domestic debt restructuring. Then few other areas. So I was just looking at some of the articles published by the International Monetary Fund, and this is one such research area that I found. So they are now using deep reinforcement learning in something called the RBC model. These are macroeconomic models, but like I said before, the more complex your model is, the more difficult it becomes to explain to a policymaker who does not have a background in such an area. So you have to ensure that whatever model you use, however complex it is, that you are able to tell it in a very simple manner and tell it in a very straightforward manner. But as you can see, this is a very recently published article, working paper. Even the IMF has started using deep learning models in economic forecasting. Of course, I have to mention that in universities such as Princeton in the US, they use a lot of deep learning models to answer certain theoretical questions in economics. But of course, the practicality of that is still yet to be seen. But of course, moving on to more simpler things like tax. Now, when I was at the parliament, one thing that we looked at was the tax-free threshold. Now, in Sri Lanka, the government institutions, the Inland Revenue Department came up with the tax-free threshold of 100,000 rupees for the pay tax. That means up to 100,000 you're not taxed, but if you earn more than 100,000, progressively there's a progressive tax. Now, what we saw was that we saw very little analysis that was being done. So there were no models to forecast what would happen if the tax-free threshold would go up to 150,000 or 200,000. The data was scattered, but of course with the available data you can do something. And something that I looked up was, well, there are various models that you can use in tax, such as I was reading a paper where they use supervised machine learning models like decision trees, random forests, support vector machines to detect tax fraud. And I don't know whether, sorry, Samari, can you see my screen?
Yes. Now it's visible. Yeah.
Earlier, was it not visible? Or?
Yeah. It was not visible, I think. Now it's fine. Yeah.
All right. Okay.
Yeah.
So there are various models that are used, which you all also can look into if you're like interested, which is lacking currently in Sri Lanka. Again, something else that we can look at is free trade agreements, FTAs. This is in international trade. Now, in international trade, there's a particular model that's been overused by economists called the gravity model. This is also a machine learning type of model, one can say. But then, how can we improve upon it? What it does and what it says is, if two countries are trading goods or services, what kind of an impact does the distance between the two countries have? And what kind of an impact does the GDP of the two countries have on the value of the trade between the two countries? So they use just simply 2 or 3 variables there. But as you all know, there are so many other variables, so many other parameters that affect trade between countries. Trade happens in a region, like in the South Asian region, or in the Asia Pacific region, between continents, between two regions such as the European Union and the Asia Pacific region. So when a lot of variables come into play, you need more complex models to be able to capture all this data. So that is another area which is quite interesting. And then finally, DSA. DSA is debt sustainability analysis. Now, debt sustainability analysis is a model that the IMF uses to check whether a country's debt is sustainable or not, whether a country may or may not default on its debt, whether a country will not be able to pay the debt in future. So Sri Lanka was, IMF announced that Sri Lanka was not sustainable. Now, these models are publicly available. If you go to the IMF website, you can take one of their courses on debt sustainability analysis, and the model is freely available. What you all can do if you all are interested as data science students, and if you all are thinking about coming into economics, is look at these existing models and see what are the gaps that you see in these models. How you can further improve it by looking at the models that you learn in your courses, and utilize these models to actually help countries like Sri Lanka, like developing countries or countries in the African region, which are undergoing severe debt crisis. Help these countries to analyze and look at the data, analyze it, and see whether their debt is sustainable or not. So these are macroeconomic issues that we can look at using certain machine learning models. For example, as I said before, you all can the simplest would be regression models, but you all can also go into things like decision trees, can be used to predict future trade patterns even, and even NLP models can be used to analyze text data related to debt, to trade, and see which will provide you insights into public sentiment about trade issues, debt issues. So there are so many machine learning, deep learning models that you all can use that goes beyond what economists use, that can provide further insight. So what are some of the career opportunities in economics that potential data science students could be involved in? One such area is, well, you can join international organizations, so such as the IMF. So while I was in the UK, I worked for the IFC, which is part of the World Bank, for about 2 months, and where I was looking into this is economic research in Bangladesh, and I simply had to analyze some data and provide information on the productivity levels of factory workers in Bangladesh given certain parameters. So that is one such example. You can work for World Trade Organization, which is another international organization, or UN, United Nations. These are all international organizations that you all can think of. And then government ministries such as the Ministry of Finance, the Inland Revenue Department, that is tax, or private corporations such as banks, big investment banks such as JP Morgan, or any other conglomerates that you all can think of. Because banks, it is very normal for banks to have economists. Currently in Sri Lanka, it is still it's a demand, it's a need that is coming up right now to have economists in banks. But having an economist in banks is a very normal thing in developed countries. And if you look at job opportunities on LinkedIn for economists working in banks, they would require you to have done courses in R or Python or SQL, and they assume that you have certain knowledge of Power BI as well. And if you want to make a lot of money, investment banks is a good option, and also consulting firms such as McKinsey. McKinsey is one of the world's largest consultancy firms, or Boston Consultancy Group is another consultancy firm. So as I said, when I was in UK, I was in one such consultancy firm, which was much smaller. But there they require you to have a certain knowledge of R and Power BI. And also you can look into think tanks, local think tanks such as IBS Verity Research, or global think tanks in the US or in the UK. These are some options and career opportunities that you would have. And so yeah, in conclusion, data science really equips economists with more precise tools to get an understanding of data and provide insightful information to drive policy decisions. That's the role of an economist. So it's very exciting for a data science student if you have a liking to come into economics, because there's a lot happening in this field and a lot is changing. So that's it for my presentation. I know it's very short, but if you have any questions with regards to how data science can be used in economics, or how economists must be using, please do ask any questions that you have. Thank you very much. Samandi?
Yes, guys, actually I hope that within this session you have got a really good understanding about the applications of economics and in the economics and in the business context. Anyway, now it's time to you to ask the questions, guys. And as I have mentioned, he's a very knowledgeable person in this area, and actually he's having a good understanding about the economics, mathematics, and the data science, everything. So then you can take a opportunity now to ask any question if you are having. Yeah, it's the time for asking the questions, right?
Excuse me, sir.
Hi. Yeah.
Yeah, sir. We are doing a research regarding economics, like for the 4th year project, and there what we are trying to do is trying to come up with some optimum what should I say, budget financing resources like monetary financing and taxation. Likewise, those resources, how to come up with the best amount by minimizing the risk to cover up the budget, the expenditures of the government. So they are what we thought was to come up with an optimization model by defining the relationships between those sources and the inflation and the GDP. Likewise, those macroeconomic variables. By defining that, we thought of building an optimization model to come up with the optimum values to finance the budget expenditure, government expenditures. So there, actually, we thought of using the available some models like simulation models, like Monte Carlo simulation. I think Monte Carlo, that is an available model. But the thing is that what we have to do is that we have to validate it at the end of the research. So my question is there traditional economic models that are available to monitor that kind of things, with optimization models?
Yeah, normally for your research question, the model that is very standard is something called dynamic stochastic general equilibrium model, DSGE, where it takes into consideration various agents, like as you mentioned, and you try to optimize each agent, and then you optimize the whole model as a whole. So if you can, I don't know whether it's related or not, but this is a very standard model that's used in macroeconomics for optimization, which is called dynamic stochastic general equilibrium. Maybe you can take a look at it and see whether there are any relationships with Monte Carlo model, Monte Carlo simulations. I've seen very little, that's the thing. So I've seen very little research on Monte Carlo simulations that's been used for macroeconomic research, unfortunately. But DSGE is something very standard. Have you looked into that by any chance?
No, sir, I have no idea about that. DSGE, right?
Yes, dynamic stochastic general equilibrium. Just see whether it would be of any help.
Yes, I will refer it later, and we'll see.
Yes.
Yeah,
because it's a very standard model that's been used. That's why I just want to mention that.
Yeah, we'll try that, sir. Thank you very much.
Sure. Okay. Any other questions, guys? So,
Yeah, students, you guys can ask any question. And it's a really kind of a very cutting edge topic in the current Sri Lankan situation as well. So you guys can ask any question.
yeah, because especially because there's a lot happening. Only thing is, if you all have access to data, you all can really do a lot. You all can really help us economists as well. Because one thing, as I said before, is that we tend not to use analytical models to drive decision making. So that is quite disadvantageous for us as a nation. I really feel that we really need to up our ante and try and use more models, and then we can disagree or agree looking at the data and the analysis whether certain policies are making sense or not. But as of now, policies are being made on an ad hoc basis, so that's quite detrimental to the economy, and that's what we face right now. But yeah, any questions? Anything regarding career opportunities or?
Okay, excuse me, sir.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, the current IMF program, the current IMF program, is that a optimization model?
That is not actually an optimization model. That is, they are basically, like I said before, they first have something called a debt sustainability analysis model, which is publicly available. So all of these numbers, whatever policies that they mentioned in the IMF document, is to make sure that Sri Lanka's debt is sustainable. That's all what they're looking at. When it comes to things like economic growth, they are not. IMF is not an organization that would accommodate that would drive economic growth. They just want to ensure that the country is stable. So there is no such optimization in this debt sustainability analysis model. They look into various risk factors affecting a country's ability to service its debt. They look into various macroeconomic parameters and variables as well. But as per my knowledge, there is no optimization that is happening in that particular model. But that is something that perhaps you can take a look at and perhaps even try and improve upon, because if you can do that, if you can come up with an improved version of it, IMF has a lot of IMF has these young economist programs, and they have these what you call research presentations that you can do, and perhaps you can write to them and you suggest whatever improvements that you have as a research proposal, and perhaps they will be quite interested, because I see a lot of young people coming from data science backgrounds into economics now. They have majored in mathematics and a minor in data science, and they come into economics, and they have a huge advantage over a student coming from purely economics. But that's just I want to mention. But yeah, it's not based on the optimization model. It's a sustainability analysis.
Okay, sir. I thought it was a optimization model, like they have set some targets and looking at what is the best possible way to achieve those.
Yeah, because they have a threshold to ensure that the debt is sustainable. For example, you have to reach 3 targets. One is, I think, you have to have your debt to GDP to 95%, and external debt service at 4.3% of GDP likewise. And based on those 3 targets, everything else is based on those 3 targets. So debt sustainability analysis, that particular model, as per my knowledge, it is not. But please correct me if I'm wrong. Yeah, but that course, which is publicly available, which you can just check, it is not. But I stand corrected if I'm wrong.
Okay, so thank you very much for the information. Thank you.
But you can check IMF online courses, and they provide it on edX.
Yeah, sure, sir. Thank you very much.
Anything else, guys?
Discuss, you guys can ask any question.
I'm assuming that you must have told them not to worry about things like ChatGPT, or what is the conversation revolving around that?
Sorry?
What is the conversation revolving around ChatGPT and its plugins that's being released?
Yeah.
They say, data scientists, their jobs will be gone, but I don't think that's true.
You can ask any question in chat box as well.
Yeah. If you all want to know about, if you're confused about what you want to do or in future, you want to gain work experience and go, or whether you want to go for higher studies, how best to approach it, just let me know.
And even guys, that this can be taken as an opportunity for you to ask any question about the higher studies if you are planning to do, because as I have mentioned that he is a graduate from University of Oxford, right? It's very difficult to be a graduate from that kind of university, right? So he has taken that opportunity. Actually, you guys can ask any question if you are having any problem about applying to those high rank universities and how to be accepted from them. You can take an opportunity now.
Or if you're too shy, you all can just send me an email or just message me. Somebody has my contact as well.
Yes, even you guys can ask any question in the chat box as well.
But just note that don't have to go into specifically data science. There are so many areas available. Economics is just one such area.
Yeah, that is one reason actually, Anjay. Actually, I decided to schedule this kind of a topic to be discussed, because that we talk data science in different domains, but in Sri Lanka, actually, that in other countries, actually, I have watched lots of discussions through the YouTube and some other platforms regarding the applications of data science in economics and business. But in Sri Lanka, it's very rare actually in this kind of discussion. That is why actually I wanted to, because that as the data science students, you should know, guys, that it's not like let's say banking or some other field, right? It's a kind of a universal subject which can be applied for different domains. It can be applied for the medicine, engineering, any area. So, but the thing is, if you know, guys, that this economics is a very powerful area where the data science can be applied. And as Sanjay has mentioned that there are specific, this is a different area because this data is very, we can tell it's very volatile. The data is very, it's the changing of the data we can't predict actually, like we are doing in other cases. Anyway, Sanjay, that I have a question actually. If the students are not having any question,
Sure.
I may ask from you actually that I want to ask from this thing actually, that I can ask this thing later as well, but I thought of asking this thing now because I think that it will be helpful for the students as well, because as the data science people, that should know, because they have already been actually used to work with very clear data sets and very nice models and get the predictions straightforward without having any issue. But when it comes to the real practitioners, real practicing, it's kind of a hell actually.
Yeah.
So I'm going to ask a question, guys. Actually, that that in the data science or statistics, actually we actually sometimes we are dealing with some assumptions and some very structural theories. Like for an example, let's think about the time series. So it's a very highly applicable thing in economics, because with the time, the GDP or let's say tax or whatever the thing, stocks, everything is depending on the time. So, but let's think about kind of model like, let's say ARIMA, or let's say let's think about the ARIMA model. You know that there's an assumption for stationarity. I think the data science students actually, they know, I have taught you. So but actual case is that when we come to the real economic data, we can't find a stationary data set, right? It's very changing.
It's volatile.
So how are you going to deal? How can we deal with those situations?
Yeah. That's what I said. So ARIMA is a univariate model, Samadhi, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes.
because REMA is a model which is normally used for forecasting inflation. And to be honest, the central bank had published inflationary forecast graph, and they, I think, used a REMA. The thing is, with regards to what Samadhi asked, you actually assumptions are broken a lot of the time, because it is very difficult when it comes to policy decision making, Samadhi. Because what you have to remember in economics is you're dealing with people, and a big assumption that we use in economics is we are rational decision makers, which is not true. But all this data is so volatile because of decisions that are taken by people. Inflation, for example, changes mainly because of something called, well, sometimes not in cases like in Sri Lanka, but if it was normal times, it could be because of expectations, inflation expectations, which is also taken into account. And inflationary expectation is kind of like a survey that is being done to gather information from people who would say what the inflation might look like in a couple of weeks' time or a couple of months' time. And this also has an impact on the volatility of data. So, as you said, assumptions such as stationarity it goes out the window. So, but what is important is that you know that some of these assumptions in these modules do not work, and you try to justify your answer, and it only gives you guidance of what inflation, for example, using the REMA for inflation, what inflation may look like, and it's given within a certain confidence interval range, but it doesn't say that that will exactly happen. So that is economics for you. Whatever model you do, you think so complex, whatever multi-rated model you use, your output might be way off. For example, I give you a good example. During the great financial crisis in 2008, very few economists predicted the financial crisis, and out of those very few economists, most of them were not economists with a quantitative background. They simply had a lot of experience. Those who did a lot of models, economists from top ranked universities researching on these, for example, people like Ben Bernanke, who was the Fed Reserve Chair, they themselves, it was very difficult for them to predict such a crisis that was looming, which was driven by the mortgage crisis. So all I want to say is you may have a lot of models, but you have to remember in economics, these models might not give you an accurate, most probably will not give you an accurate answer, but you will only use it as a guiding mechanism. That's it, rather than making ad hoc decisions. And always remember, if you're coming into economics, whatever model that you use, you have to remember that at the end of the day, you're talking to a person who has no knowledge of what your model you're using. You have to really make it very simple and explain why a certain policy based on your analysis makes sense or does not make sense. You have to keep that in mind at the end of the day as well. So I went around a lot, Samadhi, but
no, that is actually really a very valuable answer. I wanted that answer from you, because that is what actually I was expecting. Because guys, that mostly in not only Sri Lanka, right, in other countries as well, even some of the final year and in the final research also, I have seen this not only in SLIIT guys, that there are in other universities as well. The people are using the models without having any idea. Just use them and just predict. That's completely not good, right? That is what I just wanted to ask from you actually. That as Sanjay as I has mentioned, you should understand that the models are there, but first of all, you should understand that why we use it. Is it feasible to use? And you should be having the domain expert knowledge. I always teach my students always that you can't do. There are some theories, but you can't just apply. That is the importance of that data science. Right? You can't just use them, and as Anjisa has mentioned, that you can understand that you have that. For an example, in the economics, that you can simply apply that. Even in that. Hanjaya asked that I discussed about the ARIMA actually, but in the deep learning, you know that there are some models like LSTM in the recurrent neural network cases. So someone may think that okay, so in the neural networks that you don't have to have any assumption, we can use like that. No, right? Machine learning is a black box, so we don't know what happens inside that, right? So yeah, especially in the economics and these areas, it should be highly interpretable. Yeah.
Yes, exactly. As somebody said, even if it's a simple model, it's fine as well. You have to have your domain knowledge in it, and you need to know why you're using that particular model, and you need to be able to back it up as well. That's so correct. That's so true, Samadhi. Yeah.
Yes, that's what actually I wanted to give the students as a good point at the end of our discussion anyway. So you should know that I think that you may have sometimes that you may sometimes beginning of this, sometimes that you may not be having any idea about the economics and the business and the applications in data. But I hope now you should have, I think, with the clear explanations our resource person has given, should be having a good understanding about the applications in the data science in this area, which is being not discussed frequently in Sri Lanka, right? Even I think that there are some discussions going on about some different applications, but not with the AI or data science application because I haven't seen even in Sri Lanka. There are, but very less. So and this is I hope that you got a really good opportunity today for getting a good knowledge in this area. So do you have any question anyway? Any other student? You can take any question. You can take this thing as an opportunity to ask any question. You're having some time. I think there are some question chat box here. Yeah.
Okay, so I think if I'm not mistaken, what the student is asking is having a mathematics background, going on to study economics. Well, as I was lecturing at the University of Moratuwa, to gain some experience, since my background was in math, I needed experience and exposure into what economic research is like. So I joined a think tank called Institute of Policy Studies in Sri Lanka, and I worked on 2 projects. One which was with collaboration with UNICEF, and another in collaboration with a US university called Duke University. So one was a project on education, and another project was on health sector project. So these 2 projects were the first kind of projects that gave me some kind of an exposure to actual economic research, and that actually I think really helped my application a lot when I was applying for my master's, because since what I did there was specializing in development economics. The master's was in development economics, and these 2 projects was heavily aligned to development economics. So I think that really helped me. If you're applying to universities such as Oxford or Harvard or London School of Economics, you have to meet the eligibility criteria. Of course, you need to have a first class, but beyond that, they see what kind of an impact you can have in your own country or in an organization that you worked in. So you have to show that you really care about the subject, whatever you're doing. So one such way is working in, for me personally, was working at a think tank, economic research think tank. And I think that really helped my application. I hope I have answered your question. If not, please do let me know if you want to know specifics.
Do you have any other question, guys?
But of course, one thing, Samadhi, I had to mention,
Yeah.
if you're going for graduate level courses in economics, you have to have certain knowledge of mathematical courses. Like, for example, I'm pretty sure you all also have done courses on calculus and maybe linear algebra. But if you all are applying for more mathematical based economics courses, such as in US universities, they also ask for courses like real analysis, which is a pure math based course in mathematics, pure mathematics based course. So they do look into your math background, and all of the students who came for the master's course, although none of them had a mathematics bachelor's degree, I think almost, I can safely say, the majority had done a minor in mathematics. Minor means major is like a specialization in economics, and then you do some other courses in mathematics as well. So they had all done courses in mathematics, and they had work experience as well. So that is how they got into a university like Oxford as well.
Yeah. One more thing, actually, I just, while you are just explaining that requirements, I just got this question to my head. Actually, that I want you to explain. Actually, I have already explained this to my students as well in the lectures. So most of the time, that as we have discussed previously, that one thing is that the people are actually mostly just using the machine learning and those stuff without having a domain knowledge. Another myth, actually, the people are just having in the data science industries. They believe that statistics, mathematics, I don't want that. I can just go to some YouTube tutorial and just have some idea about the machine learning models or whatever the pandas or let's say seaborn libraries and just apply likewise. But my case that I have, since we are from some philosophical areas as well as we have learned those things that we know actually. The most important thing is what actually happens inside the models. Then only you can actually use that thing very proper way. Can you please comment on that thing? Actually,
very true, because if you're using if you want to do research, or if you want to come up with a how should I say this, research output that really has a lot of weightage to it, understanding the model is what is really important. You need to have a certain mathematical understanding of what you're doing, rather than simply just putting a blanket over it and just using an existing model without having any knowledge, because that is where we, as for now at least, we have an advantage over things like ChatGPT, where anyone can now simply just say, build me this model. But what's the point? I mean, if you do not put in the effort to actually know what is happening, why the reason behind using certain models, what are the various models that you have, what is the mathematical or statistical underpinning to such models, because somewhere down the line in your work or in research, if people can come and ask you about your model, and it's good if you need to know what you're doing, and you can only be confident if you know the background of the model, and you can actually improve upon it and do much more with your research and even with your work as well. And as Samadhi said, it's very important. The whatever the quantitative impact underpinning that a model has, because all these models were built from mathematics and statistical models. So you need to have some knowledge of that. I would say more than some.
Yeah, I think, do you have any other questions? Any hope? That's no more question, right? Anyway, so I know that he's a really busy person with lots of duties and responsibilities, but so I really appreciate, I will say Hanjai actually, because he's like a brother to me actually, because the thing is that the word I use always, because it's very, as I have mentioned, that from the university life onwards, that while I was working as a lecturer at University of Moratuwa as well, so I learned a lot from him. So I really I take this thing as an opportunity to appreciate to my brother actually, that because as I have mentioned, that I think that you may have actually got that point, that he mentioned a very valuable thing. Whatever the subject that you learn, love it. That's one thing actually I learned from him, right? And actually I'm now using the things actually while I'm doing the lecturings and even my studies and everything. So yeah, thank you very much for everything. So I think in today's session, I think that I don't want to tell it again. I think that you know the value of today's session. I think that most of the students actually that who have joined the session, they were here for the entire session, right? I have noticed everyone. So thank you very much for participating in this session, guys. That actually the attendees actually. So I know that this is a really rare topic which is discussed in these data science applications. But actually, as a data science division, we decided to do this session for giving an understanding about the applications. Data science can be applied in anywhere, right? That's what we wanted to give with this techno session as well. So again, so I'm going to take this thing as a valuable opportunity to thank our resource person, Mr. Sanjay Aryavansa. While he's very busy, he's very busy to us. He spent his valuable time for us. So again, thank you very much, and I hope the session actually is really worth for our students as well. Yeah.
Thank you very much, Samadhi, for the invitation. And
Sure.
yeah, students, if you all have any questions, just ask Samadhi for my number and just or send me an email. Samadhi has my email as well. If you all have any questions with regards to higher studies, or if you all are interested in coming into economics, just let me know. Just give me a buzz. Thank you, Samadhi, for the opportunity.
Yeah, sure.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you.
All right. Okay.
Yeah.
Good night, everyone.
Okay, good night.